Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock, Drogheda. My name's Nick Park. I'm taking us through a series called Dinner with Jesus. We're looking at those times when Jesus ate with people, sometimes formally at a dinner table, sometimes just a snack when he was walking along, or even with a crowd of people, like at the feeding of the 5,000 or of the 4,000. And we've got to Luke chapter 14, which is where Jesus was invited to the house of one of the chief Pharisees. Now, in our last Take 5, we saw where Jesus was invited to dine with a certain Pharisee. And in that case, we said we're not sure what the motive was. There's no apparent malice there, and it could well have been one of the Pharisees that were well disposed towards Jesus. But that was not the case with the leaders of the Pharisees. The leaders of the Pharisees wanted opportunities to trap Jesus, to catch him out, saying something or doing something that they could use against him and destroy him and, if necessary, kill him. And there was a man there who was sick with dropsy. Now, dropsy today, we understand dropsy is where fluid builds up in your bodily tissue, and it's usually a sign of some disease or disorder of one of the internal organs. So it can happen with heart disease, it can happen with kidney disease or liver disease. And obviously these are all things that they wouldn't have understood fully back in the first century, and they certainly wouldn't have had the medical capability to fix problems with your kidneys, your liver, or your heart. And so having the dropsy could well be fatal, and certainly there was little chance of doctors coming up with a cure for it. And here's this man with this life-limiting condition, and he's there at the meal where Jesus is. Now, maybe he just happened to be there by accident, but it's quite likely he was planted there. They knew it was the Sabbath day. They knew Jesus was a healer. They knew he was a man of compassion. They knew that it would be unlikely that he would just see somebody desperately sick and just leave them that way and couldn't care less. And so this may well be a setup. And Jesus challenged them. He looked around at them because he knew what was going on. And he said, so which is right to do on the Sabbath day, to do good or to do evil? But they just kept quiet. And so Jesus did good. He reached out and he healed the man. He did a miracle. But now they had something they could use against him. And yet he had shown his superiority to them in what he had done. And then he immediately goes to speaking about a quite different subject. He doesn't start teaching all about the Sabbath. Instead, he talks about humility. And Jesus shared two parables. He shared a parable about when you go to a wedding feast or a party, a big meal. He said, don't go to the top places. Don't go to the most important places first, but go and sit in the least important places. He says, because you might well be embarrassed. You might well find that there's people there that are much more important than you are, and you go and you sit in the most important places, and then you're embarrassed because you're asked to move down the table to the lower places. He said, instead, come and sit in the lower places, and then you know what? If you get moved up to the top table, that's great, but you won't be embarrassed by it. But he also then talked about not only humility among the guests at a meal, but also among the hosts. He said, when you invite people, he said, don't just invite all the important people that it's going to look good. It's going to make you look good because these important people have come to your party. He said, go out and invite the ordinary people. Invite the people that are on the roadside. Invite the people who are at the bottom of society and invite them along, because that shows humility on your part as well. Now, why would Jesus say this? I mean, what has all this teaching on humility got to do with the guy that's sick with the dropsy? Well, it's quite this. It was all about the motive of what they were doing. You see, hospitality is something good. To receive somebody into your home and share hospitality with them, that's good. But if you're doing it to show off, or if you're doing it to trick somebody or trap somebody like they were doing with Jesus, then your hospitality is worthless and empty. And he said we need to approach these situations, whether we invite it as a guest or whether we're inviting other people as guests, we've got to come with humility. And that's what Jesus did. He went in with humility, and yet when he healed that guy of the dropsy, there was no doubt that Jesus was the most important person in the room. But he didn't have to try and boost himself up to do that. And today, I pray that we will learn that lesson and we will learn to walk before him in humility and in grace, and he will honor you and he will raise you up in Jesus' name. May God bless you today. Join us again next time for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.